Thing up before we get started.
Oh, good.
Dope.
Told you I didn't prepare for this. It's okay. This is like eerily similar to Bed Boys. Just kind of roll with it,
man.
If it's too structured, like it just loses.
Fun.
Yeah, it just loses the.
It's canned. It seems canned.
But yeah, I don't want it to be like an interview. It's got to be like a conversation. You know.
What's your favorite color?
Green, dude.
Sick. All right, guys. So welcome to Strenght episode 21. We have a very special guest here today, Mr. Christian French, aka French Fit. Christian has been a member off and on with us for a long time, since high school. Originally from East Buchanan. He's had a really interesting journey, in working with athletes and whatnot, and basically making fitness his life. And I'll let him do a better explanation than I can do on him explaining his story. Before we get started, so I don't forget, I do have some icebreaker questions.
Okay. Let's do it.
So first thing, before we start with this, do you know how much a polar bear weighs?
I'm going to say like 1,500 pounds.
Enough to break the ice.
Oh.
Nice. All right. Anyways.
That was the only one?
No. That's just me being an ass. I did that for a college speech class one time. I was talking to my friends. I'm like, yeah, I got this speech class and we have to come up with an icebreaker. So my buddy Kale's like, dude, how much does a polar bear weigh? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, enough to break the ice. And I'm like, that's my icebreaker.
That's a good one.
That was the very last class I took at Hawkeye, and it was just like a effort class. And I was like, after this speech, I am graduated, so I don't care.
Did it work?
The entire class laughed. The teacher was not impressed. So I feel like I won everyone over.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, icebreaker questions. So, ketchup or mustard, or do you have a different favorite condiment?
I'd say ketchup over mustard. Favorite condiment? More than that, I'm a barbecue sauce kind of type of guy.
What kind of barbecue sauce?
I mean, if I'm not caring about like the calories, I'd probably go Sweet Baby Ray's. But the Jihu sugar-free, honestly, I feel like they do a pretty good job at making sugar-free condiments that don't taste like ass.
Sweet Baby Ray's has one too now.
Really?
Yeah, no sugar added. It's actually really good.
I'm gonna have to hit that one up.
It tastes like the original.
Nice.
Yeah. Check it out. Yeah. I think Keinroth got me on that one actually. So you're on your deathbed. What would be your last meal?
Last meal.
Nolan was very specific with this answer. Like had it all. Like it was like he had it planned out.
Man, haven't thought about this a whole lot. I think I need to. I'd probably go. I mean, I'm just getting a spread for sure because it's like, I don't care who's paying for it. I'm probably getting like Casey's breakfast pizza.
Okay.
Casey's breakfast pizza. I'm gonna get some like barbecue wings. I'm probably gonna get like a ribeye steak with some French fries. Probably like a root beer float. I really like root beer floats. Shoot, I don't know. Probably an energy drink. I feel like that's
a whole case of them.
Yeah, case of Gorilla Mind.
Yeah. Any dessert? Yeah,
I'd probably go like ice cream and cookies.
Okay. I like it. Cool. All right. Do you consider yourself a morning person or a night person?
I'd say a morning person.
By choice or by default?
A little bit of both. I think like naturally I'm someone that likes to just get up a little bit more early just because I feel like you can get more stuff done and be a little bit less bothered. I just feel like it sets your day off on a good foot. Like you get something done early in the morning, and then even if your day like goes to shit later on, you already like you've got that one positive thing done. Versus if you get up late and your day goes to shit, like it's not the end of the world, but it's obviously not as good as the former. Partly because of default, usually like in strength and conditioning, it's a lot of early mornings. I think that kind of helped me a little bit. It's kind of me naturally, but sometimes it does, I do have to get up a little earlier than I would prefer, but it is what it is.
Well, I mean, also too, like to piggyback off of what you said, like you start out your day with like, movement, maybe some gratitude, some meditation or some thinking. You're already starting off on a positive note.
Mm-hmm.
That's something like I've talked about on the podcast. So wanting to get back into doing is some of that stuff myself, because I really miss those quiet mornings where I just get like a little bit of me time, a little bit of movement, get to stretch, foam roll,
right,
and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's awesome. Or like in your case, I mean, I know like since you've been back, you've been coming in here earlier mornings ish, or in the mornings and working out and
whatnot, like right now, like ideally I like to, like what I've been doing, I'll either work out like pretty early, like during, when I go back to work, I'll be working out like pretty early, like probably 5:30, 6 a.m. But like now I like to take the opportunity to like sleep in a little bit. I usually get up, either read for a little bit. That's just like one of my hobbies that I enjoy doing, read for a little bit or go on like a little bit of walk, and then come work out. But yeah, something along those lines is usually what sets me up for like just a good day. I feel like in general, reading, movement, something that like, is gonna like get you off on a good foot.
Yeah, get the juices flowing. Cool. What side of the bed do you sleep on?
Right now, let's see, my bed. I mean, I feel like I have the whole bed. I just sleep in the middle. But I guess I'm on the right side of the bed more often because I'm not close to my bed's pushed up against a wall. Okay. So on the right side, the left side's pushed up against the wall.
Okay. Is your back facing the door or are you facing the door?
I mean, I toss and turn. Yeah.
So if like, not trying to put you in a bad spot. So like, let's say you and your girlfriend are sharing the bed, sleeping together. Are you still on the right side?
Oh, when I was...
Do you guys fight over it?
No, I mean, I feel like I was on the left side when I was visiting her, actually.
Really?
Yeah, hers is like in the middle of the room though, but I'm not like particular, to be honest.
Oh man, I'm anal about it.
Really?
I gotta be on the right side every time.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Maybe I'm not taking it serious enough. I need to get my game together.
My wife also tells me I'm OCD, so cool. Do you prefer, I think I already know the answer to this, given some what you've said previously, but do you prefer books, movies, or TV shows?
I like books. I'm not opposed to any of them. I just think, one, it's pretty easy to like fit in a movie or a TV show because it's more, to me, it's a little bit more passive. Like it can be very like active, but it's more, you can just throw it on and watch it.
Background.
Yeah, versus like a book, you need to actually like take time and like be a little bit more present, at least if you want to like get something out of it. So.
Yeah, cool. I like it. As far as genres of books, anything in particular?
I like a pretty wide variety nowadays. I mean, if you would ask me a few years ago, it would have been pretty much strictly like the typical like personal development and then like fitness and training books, but I'll still read stuff like that, but I feel like I've expanded a little bit more to like, I like to read books on like finance or like some things that dip into like philosophy. I've been really getting into more like autobiographies or biographies lately because, just trying to learn a little bit more. I found this podcast called Founders that I've been really hooked on lately. Ooh. It just basically like details stories about like, founders of whatever, companies. So they did like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, anyone who's built like a big company. And that just got me really interested in like learning more about that just because it's a little bit more like the business side. It's not as, I don't get as much of that through like my job. So I feel like I'm trying to get that outside of, I'm going to get plenty of talk about like training and, fitness within my line of work. But I mean, as we talked about, like that's kind of something I want to do eventually in my life. So I just like learning about that type of stuff. So
yeah, business stuff. No, that's awesome. I'm really into like when my wife and I are hanging out, usually what we watch is a little bit more lighthearted, just kind of entertainment and just something kind of on. But like when I'm by myself, I like documentaries. I'll watch stuff about finance. I like reading stuff about finance. Honestly, if I were to go back to school, I won't, but like if I were to go back to school, like and study something business-ish related, I think it would definitely be finance just because I do kind of find it interesting.
Yeah.
That or like, I don't know, something science-based, which is weird because I was terrible with science, but I love anatomy.
Yeah.
So
no, I love documentaries too. Especially this is kind of weird, but like I love watching like documentaries about like cults and like crazy like religions and stuff like that. I think it's like, one, it's just like it almost seems like it's not real, but it's and it's kind of like crazy to think, oh, that actually like went on that actually happened.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a lot you can tell from like, oftentimes those like leaders of those like cults use their influence for like bad.
Yep.
But I think it can tell you a lot about like influence tactics and like what people will believe and like human behavior and like how people like however crazy that something is, like people want something to like believe in and follow. I don't know. There's just like
they want to belong.
Yeah, it's just an interesting like thing to think about. It's like, damn, like these people were really like brainwashed.
Yeah.
So
you know that there's a cult in Iowa.
What's it called?
I don't remember. It's for real though. It's like we're by Des Moines. Yeah, there's a small town. They actually have like a monastery and everything there. There's a YouTube channel that Sarah and I like to watch stuff on, and it's a really cool. It's a positive channel. So shout out to these guys, but it's called Yes Theory.
Okay.
And it's just a group of guys that just start out as them just saying yes, and like facing their fears, facing challenges, going skydiving, going exploring the world and traveling. So that their whole podcast is just based off of travel their whole page is just based off of travel and adventure and like just meeting positive like-minded people. And they've actually created such a huge community that there's like Yes Theory communities in different cities, states, towns, different countries.
Wow.
Now, and they have a massive, like I want to say like 6 million like YouTube subscribers or something. They're huge. But they've come to Iowa a couple times.
Okay.
And they were looking up cults, and they actually went over to a place in Iowa. I can't remember. I gotta look it up because it's gonna drive me crazy.
I'm not doing a deep dive on this.
Iowa cult. It's in Fairfield.
Okay. Yeah, it's there used to be a school there, I think, called
the Transcendental Meditation Movement in Fairfield, often called America's Cult City.
Okay.
Controversial Living Word Fellowship, a Christian group founded by John Robert Stevens with extreme control tactics.
What does it say on that? What is that first word?
Marsh.
Yeah, I think there used to be because I actually had a teammate in college that was from there, and he's like, yeah, like these people are taking over, and I didn't even think about it, but yeah, I've briefly heard of that.
But yeah, they welcome them in. They'll let them interview them and come in and like, meditate and do all their other things. It was actually really interesting.
Yeah.
And they're not like, they didn't seem like crazy people or anything. It was just
that's how they get you. I don't know what that was.
I think that was Andy's phone. Conrath is here today. So got a lot going on, man. All right. So last question. Favorite hobby that's not gym or fitness related?
Gym or fitness related? I like to travel. Like I love, even if it's not like, I was going to say like I like to hike, but I guess that's like somewhat fitness related, but I like to travel. I just think it's like good for one, it's like a cool way to like relax and stuff like that, but just like you can see, different places, whether it's even in the US or like international, like different cultures. I feel like that's like a very good form of developing the self. If you like look at it that way. I think there's like definitely a better and a worse way to do it. Like if you're just going to like all-inclusive resorts and stuff like that, I don't know if you're like, I'm not saying there's anything.
I feel like you're calling me out right now.
I'm not saying there's
I agree though.
There's nothing wrong with it, but you're not getting the authentic culture, in my opinion. And like that's where like, especially like when I was in the DR, like that's where like I went to those places and I was like, I don't like these places as much as these like more underground places because you don't really get that authentic feel. Yeah. So like, I would say like travel. That's like I love to travel.
I was just gonna bring that up because that's so great for you because like, so French lived in the Dominican for about a year or so.
Yeah, about a year and a half,
and
close to 2 years.
Gotcha. Yeah, gosh, I can't believe it was that long. So and like, yeah, when Sarah and I went on our honeymoon in 2021, we went to the Dominican, and primarily just because we have a member that goes there every year and told us about this resort, and it was an amazing resort. It was very cheap because we got a big COVID discount and stuff, so we were there for like 5 nights. Beautiful resort, and like they'll wait on your hand and foot, like, but it's just like part of me feels guilty about that because I'm like, I know these people aren't getting paid very well. So we made sure to tip extremely well, and they treat us like absolute kings. But also like we didn't get a chance to experience the culture. But on like, I don't mean for this to sound bad. Like the Dominican is like basically a third world country, and
It is.
holy cow, that drive there was sketchy. And I think I've told you about that before, but like the drive there was sketchy, but the drive back was worse because the dude that drove us there was a G. Like they had the windshield wiper washer guys that are trying to come up to us at stoplights, and he goes, mm-mm. And then they just like went around our vehicle. On the way back, it was just like some old man that was driving us back to the airport, and
little resistance. He put up little resistance.
You didn't put up any resistance. Like the people came over to wash the windshield and stuff, and they start spraying. And he just turns the wipers on. Then they're like trying to get in the back of the Suburban, like where our bags are. And I'm like, dang it, like I'm an idiot. Like I left my bag with my passport in the back. I'm like, these guys are trying to get in the car right now. They were trying to open up our doors, and there's like 4 or 5 guys outside this SUV, and I'm like, man, I don't want to have to get out of this truck, like, yeah, because I'm gonna get jumped. But like, yeah, it was really sketchy, and like Sarah was pretty on edge, obviously, and fortunately the light turned and we were able to get away, and the doors were locked, so they didn't get in. But man, if they want to cause harm, they could have. And it's like, well, they were
that's a crazy story.
Stuck in a foreign country. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for answering the icebreaker question. Tell everyone about like what got you. So Christian is, you're a strength and conditioning coach. You work for the Chicago Cubs, which is really cool. What got you before we get to that, what got you your interest in fitness and training? What made you want to become a strength and conditioning coach? Because it's a very competitive field. I run into a lot of kids that come in here and they're like, I want to go to school for strength and conditioning, and I want to work for a college or a professional team. It's like, dude, like that is such a great thing to want to do, but it seems like such a hard like thing to get into, and very challenging.
Yes, yeah, it is. I think like a lot of people, like growing up, like I obviously played about every sport that I could. Was like a very active kid. I mean, I feel like that part of it is not very different from most people. But I think obviously I was in every sport I could, and then when I started like working out and lifting weights, like that was like obviously like I love to play sports, but like I got really hooked on that, and that was when the YouTube fitness craze, like the YouTube fitness people were like, I feel like that was in like its golden age as far as like like people like Christian Guzman, Max Tuning, like, all those like Alpha Elite was becoming a thing. Like Gymshark was, they're still big in the scene, but obviously.
What's the Max Muscle guy? Like who's that? The guy that always do walking lunges around track.
Corey Gregory. Yeah. Matt Ogus, Chris Jones when it was Physiques of Greatness and then Pump Chasers.
So like, Mark Lobeiner, MTS Nutrition, is one of the owners of Pump Chasers.
Yeah, I know that he had a stake in the company because that's the only way. I think that's the only place you can get Pump Chasers products.
I used to carry it back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that. So like, I got hooked on that was like my form of entertainment back then was YouTube fitness, and like I just kind of fell in love with it. And at first I was like, I think like I want to be like a YouTube fitness person, and then I was like, well, there's that, and then like, but like, what am I gonna do besides that? Like obviously like those people proved that it can be like a career in and of itself, which is sick. But as I got through high school, I didn't even know strength and conditioning was a thing because like I went to East Buchanan, small school. We didn't have like a quote unquote strength and conditioning coach. We had like sport coaches, like usually it was the football coaches that kind of ran the strength and conditioning program, but we didn't have someone who was paid and like certified just for that.
AJ helped out a lot with that too.
Yeah. So it was like, it wasn't like we didn't have any help, but it just wasn't like, I saw those people as like teachers and coaches. I didn't see them as like, I didn't even have a concept of what that was. And I feel like they did like a good job, especially with like what we have. And like, thankfully now high school S&C is becoming more and more prevalent, especially at like bigger schools. Like people are like investing in that, which I think is great.
Yeah.
So I went to college thinking that I was going to be a personal trainer. I was like, oh, like I want to be a personal trainer because that's kind of the only concept I had of being able to like work in fitness and like help people train, help people work out. I didn't know that like S&C was like a pathway. So I was like, just told like, all right, you should study exercise science or something like that. And that's kind of the path to that. Fast forward, I think it wasn't even until my second year. So I ended up, I did a year out in South Dakota at a school that's actually closed now, which is crazy to think.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that was like origin story.
Yeah.
I had a very like kind of like, it's crazy because I don't know if I would have like found that career path, or it definitely wouldn't have led me to the same exact place if I would have stayed there. But I went out there for a year. So I was like, a little bit homesick, a little bit of like, other factors, obviously. And, kind of made a last second decision to leave, and, ended up at Simpson College down Indianola, Iowa, just south of Des Moines. And, it was weird because it was a late decision, like I said. And I remember like taking like a visit. This was in like July, early August, and like you start school at the end of August. And I just remember like going down there, and I was like, damn, like I was literally like, I hope I don't like hate this place, because like I'm probably like, this looks like not like the only option, but like I knew like I didn't want to go to a big school. Like I went to a small high school. I like the feel of like having like a better like student to teacher ratio. I didn't want to be in a class with like, hundreds of kids. And like I still wanted to try to like pursue, I was played basketball at the time, basketball, and ran cross country. So like that was like a level that I could still play that at and pursue that. So I was just remember myself saying like, damn, I hope I like don't hate it here, because I'm probably gonna end up going here. And like, which is kind of like a glum way to look at it, but like looking back on it, I was like, damn, like I really like, you can't plan that stuff, and it really couldn't have like worked out better. I ended up really liking it, and I was a very like, I would say average to below average athlete at the college level, but I feel like that kind of played, let's say it almost played to my advantage in a way, because I found out about strength and conditioning as a career my first year there. I remember I had a class. It's called like Intro to Health Careers, and like you basically the class was like they just brought in a different speaker every time from like a different career in like health and medicine, stuff like that, because it was a health and exercise science major. So physical therapists, physicians assistants, anything from like chiropractors, and then they had strength and conditioning coach, and they brought him in. It was the strength and conditioning coach at Simpson. But kind of that was the first time I really got informed about what the profession is, and like what it entails, and like what the possibilities are. And that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, well, like I think I'd probably like to work with athletes a little bit more than I'd like to work with Gen Pop. At least I want to at least try it out. And so from there, I was able to be an intern at Simpson, where I went to school. That was interesting actually, because that was when COVID hit, and that was kind of my first intro to S&C was during COVID. So like that looked a lot different. People were having to work out in groups of like small groups, only like 2 people like per like whatever square footage, to make sure they had like social distancing. We're having to spray down everything like 10 times a day. And, I was able to intern there. And then I interned at a high school, Urbandale High School in the Des Moines area. They had just built like a kick-ass facility. So that was a good experience, but I was like, I don't really think like the high school like level is where I want to be at. And then I had the opportunity. There was an alum that went to Simpson, who was the director of strength and conditioning at Sacramento State out in California. He's actually now the director of football at Stanford, so which is crazy to think.
Wow.
And so I drove out there that summer. I think that was the summer of 2021. So like COVID was still kind of like a thing. Drove out there, like emptied my bank account paying for an apartment in California, and had just an absolute blast. Like that was like, we worked, I got to work with football, I got to work with basketball. We worked a lot. We worked a lot of hours, but I learned a ton. I met a lot of really good people. And that was kind of like sealed the deal for me. I was like, all right, I think I want to like pursue college strength and conditioning. And then I was able to, we got a new director of strength and conditioning at Simpson. His name's Sam Schmitz. He's like someone who's I owe a lot to. He's a mentor of mine, and he's, I think, probably the person that's had the biggest impact on my career. He was there for the last 2 years I was at Simpson, and I was basically working for him as like we call them like undergraduate assistants. So it's basically like a work study. You're basically like a paid intern, and how it works at a smaller school is like Simpson or any place like that, like a smaller Division III school. People aren't on athletic scholarships because you can't give athletic scholarships at Division III. And how a lot of these schools get people to come to their school is through athletics. So it's not uncommon to see schools like that size have like 20 to 30 different athletic teams, which, because I mean, if you can get 50 people on an athletic team, that's 50 more people that are like paying tuition. That's just kind of like how it works. But how that also works with strength and conditioning is, we had, I think 24 teams at the time, give or take, and 2 full-time coaches. And for anyone, like, you can do the math, like that's a lot of work. Like if all those teams are going to work out, 2 to 4 times a week, and all those teams have to have a program written for them, and, maybe they need to be warmed up for practice. Like that's not enough people for the amount of work. So what we did, and this worked out to like my advantage, and really like I think helped me grow early on, like at a faster pace than I would have if I would have been at like a big school that had more resources. Is once we kind of proved that like we were responsible enough to help out with other teams, they started giving us like responsibilities. Like I was able to program for like smaller teams. It was like swim and dive or like cross country at first. And you would write the programs. And then my last year there was, we added a gymnastics program, men's and women's. So it was like the inaugural team. And, Coach Schmitz basically said like, hey, this is going to be your project. You're going to be in charge of them. Like it's going to be all you. I'm not going to be like hovering over your shoulder. Like obviously, like if you need help, let me know. But like I was the coach for that team. So like I would run, the warm-ups, run the sessions, write the programs. I'm meeting with the coaches. And like some people don't even get an opportunity to do that until they're in like a graduate assistant position. So like for me to do that and still be like a student at the undergrad level was like a very good opportunity for me to develop. And I think it helped really set me up for what was to come next. So graduated, then did another internship out in North Carolina, Elon University.
I remember that too.
Yep. So I had heard about Elon. I knew that they had like a very good internship program. I'd heard like a lot of good things about just like the coaches that came out of there. Like they helped get people really good jobs. They thought about things a little bit differently. Heard they like treated their staff very well. I'd heard like very good things about, Coach DeMarco, who's still the director there. It's another person who like has helped me a lot in my career. And, did that internship. Similar structure to the one I did in California. It was mostly football and then help a little bit with, men's and women's basketball. Had a blast there too. And then fortunately they had a position come open at the end of the summer, and, Coach Marco basically asked me, like, would you be interested in staying around and working here? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So that was a part-time spot there, working with men's and women's soccer, women's lacrosse, then helping out with football. Stayed there, and I loved it there. I mean, I loved, the people on the staff. They were like really good people to work with, and like they were people that like we would hang out outside of work too, which like is obviously helpful. Like you're not just like working around people that like don't want anything to do with you outside of work. And yeah, I learned a ton, but like I said, it was a part-time job. So like I knew I couldn't stay there forever, but I also wasn't like actively like being like, oh, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. Because I knew like I didn't want to leave a good situation just for like a mediocre one with a little better pay. That's the thing about strength and conditioning is like people, like you said, it is a very competitive field. There's, if you're counting, that was like 3 or 4 internships deep, and that got me like a part-time job. Like, it's not, you don't just like go to school, get your degree, and then people are going to be like asking you if you want a full-time job. That's not how it goes. So like it's a great field. I love it, but like you got to be willing to grind a little bit, and if you do, it will reward you, but it's not like other fields where it's like, oh, you might be, an accountant and you get your degree, maybe do an internship and you can get a full-time job starting at whatever, 70K. It's not like that. I think the pay is definitely getting better. It's headed in the right direction, but it's still, and it's obviously always going to be dependent on the school as well. Like, smaller schools aren't going to be able to put as much resources into a strength and conditioning program as like a
Stop.
good. So obviously the pay is going to vary by level. Obviously, like a bigger school with a lot more money is probably going to pay everyone a little bit more. Versus like if you're working at a smaller school, it's probably not going to be as much just because there's not as much, there's not as much money to go around. But like I said, I was at Elon, and like I said, Coach DeMarco, who's always looking out for people, like he's glad that you're working there, but he knows what your goals are, and if those goals are, something that they can't offer at Elon, he's going to do whatever he can to like look for another job that's gets you closer to those goals. So there was multiple times where he was like, hey, are you interested in this? Are you interested in this? And they were like, it was anything from like, there was another school in North Carolina. There was a job at Harvard that opened up that he asked me about. So it's like, he's always looking out for your best interest at the end of the day. And I know that not like the jobs were obviously good jobs, but like there was nothing that really like super piqued my interest. And like I told myself, like, I'm gonna leave. I don't know exactly what type of job I'm looking for, but like I'll know it when I see it. Like I'll just be like, oh, like that's something that's like really interesting to me that I want to pursue. And I just remember one day we were sitting in like a staff meeting, and he's just like, hey, are you interested in going to the Dominican Republic to work for the Cubs for X amount of money? And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty sick. So he's like, all right, send your resume today to this guy. And
wow.
That was another thing about SNC is like, there's very quick turnarounds. Like the hiring process can go very quickly. And then from that to your start date can be like very, very, very instant. So I think that same day where I sent the resume, I was on a phone call with the guy who would actually end up hiring me. Shout out Mark Wiseman. Actually, if you recognize him, he used to be the fullback for Iowa.
I say the name sounds really familiar.
Yeah, so he was the minor league strength and conditioning coordinator with the Cubs when I first got the job. Okay. So yeah, he's another guy who's like top tier guy. Would do anything to help you. I was on a phone call later that day with him, and then over the next few days, I was on like 3 or 4 more phone calls with other people on the staff, and then there was a little like waiting period. I was waiting for one last phone call with the director of player development, which is like, I didn't know what that meant, but that was like a very high up position. He like oversees everything that happens in the minor leagues. At the time, like I didn't really know. It's funny because I had never worked with baseball before I took that job, which is kind of funny. So I was just kind of like oblivious to how like important these people were within the org, which I feel like probably helped me because I wasn't like trying to, I was just being myself and acting like they were just another person.
Just naive to the situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I finally talked to him, and then I got the job offer. I took it. I finished out that next week, and I remember I worked like a half day on a Friday at Elon in North Carolina. Drove home, got home Saturday morning, got on a plane Sunday morning, and I was working Monday in the DR. So I worked Friday in North Carolina, drove home, drove 15 hours home to Iowa, got on a plane at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, was in the DR that afternoon, and Monday morning I was working down there. So yeah.
No time for jet lag.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's crazy turnarounds. So
yeah, they're not playing around.
No. So
that's awesome. So what and I know you're still with like the minor leagues for
Mm-hmm.
the Cubs for now, but what is it like knowing that you work for such a large organization, such an organization that has like just probably one of the most, like, speaking of cult like following in baseball, maybe second to like the Yankees, but
Yeah.
what is that like? Like, I mean, there's got to be so much heritage and tradition built up in that, and I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I'll get people like, especially like around here. I mean, Cubs fans are everywhere, but like, especially like the closer you get to the source, there's
yeah,
obviously going to be more. And like, it's funny because I grew up a Cardinals fan. Those are like, they're like rivals, you know, like, um, but no, the culture and the fan base of like the Cubs it really is, it's remarkable because like I got the opportunity when they made the playoffs this year. We got to go to that second round playoff series when they played the Brewers, and like we
yep,
got to go to those two games that I'd never been to Wrigley Field.
that's cool.
I've watched a couple baseball games. Like I've went to the White Sox stadium. I've been to like a Brewers game. I've been to a Cardinals game, but I've never been to Wrigley Field. And like obviously that's like one of the most iconic. You know, it's probably that and Fenway Park. I'd probably say are the most iconic stadiums in Major League Baseball. And it's just like you just even like the area around, because I mean it's Wrigleyville. That's one of the unique parts about Wrigley Field is like it's not like downtown. It's in like a suburban area. It's like the neighborhood is actually Wrigleyville. Like
Yep.
people live close to the stadium, and just like you can just tell people are like crazy about the Cubs,
Yeah.
and then like being able to watch a game there, and like they won both those games, so it was insane. So like it is cool, and I feel like I didn't really like fully grasp it, especially my first almost 2 years. Like I was so far removed from that because I was at the opposite end of the spectrum. Obviously, we're at the academy in DR, but it is. I mean, I'm obviously very like thankful for it. I don't think like it's crazy because like something I knew like I thought I wanted to be in college, but in the back of my mind I was like I think working professional at I don't know what sport, but I think at some point in my career I'd want to do that. I definitely didn't think I would do that like this early on, but no, it's been like it's been a very good experience, and it's I'm extremely thankful for it, and obviously the goal is to help in any way I can, and hopefully like we win a World Series. Like it's the end goal for anyone who's working in pro baseball. But it's been it's been really good so far.
So you're out of the DR now. You kind of switched locations and maybe roles just a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, we'll kind of talk about the next step here.
yeah. So first 2 seasons I was at the academy in the DR. So like for those of you that don't know, that's where every international prospect, when they sign an international prospect, they start at the DR Academy. Most of them, obviously, if it's a very like high profile prospect or they're a little bit older, they might bring them straight to the States. But most of the time, you're dealing with 16 to 19-year-old kids at that academy, and then if they're good enough, they'll go up to the States. I was technically still an assistant there. My first year, we had 3 coaches, and then I think my second year we added a fourth. We added a Latin American coordinator. So I was obviously um, I was in like a supporting role, like an assistant role, but it didn't really feel like that. I feel like we all kind of like it wasn't like a it's not really like a hierarchy like you might find other places, which I like appreciate. It's just like everyone's kind of obviously some people have more experience or different experience, but it's nothing like oh like you're the assistant, like you like yes I have to report to people, but it's never like oh like you're the assistant, you do this or you can't do this. It's very like I don't even want to know what you call it. Like, it's not as hierarchical as I think you'd find with other teams, which I really appreciate. So I was down there for the first 2 seasons, and then fortunately we had a spot open up, and I was able to get the call up, and I'll be the AAA assistant this next year. So I'll be with the Iowa Cubs.
So this
So
is kind of like a promotion then.
yes,
Good.
so like which is great. which was kind of like my goal when I first took the job. Was like, all right, I know I'll be here for probably 1 to 2 years. My goal is to try to get to an affiliate. The Iowa Cubs are the AAA affiliate, so I'm going to see, and I know that's the affiliate lifestyle and the season is a lot different from what I've been experiencing the last couple of years. So I think that'll be a really good telltale of like if I enjoyed a lot, if it's something I want to continue to pursue, or if I want to take a step in a different direction. But yeah, I'll be the AAA assistant, so we'll be dealing with people that have been to the big leagues, either with the Cubs or other teams, or people that are still kind of on the cusp of making that jump. And I'll be working with a guy who has been there last year, so he's got some experience at that level, and I think I'm gonna really be able to learn a lot from him. Um, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because I'll start the year spring training. We'll do that in Arizona because it's obviously a little cold to play baseball in January, February in Iowa. So, and that's where we'll have the whole staff together, and that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to. And I got to experience it a little bit when I came up to Arizona for the last month of the work here. Is you have all your coaches in the same spot, and it's great because you just get to, one, there's good people to work with. Two, it's like just good to like bounce different ideas off each other. That's kind of one thing that I missed in the DR. Like obviously we had our staff there. We had like 2, 3, 4 people, but it just wasn't quite the same as like, I kind of compare it to like that college feel where like you have everyone in the same building. And so for that first 3 months, everyone will be in Arizona, and then we'll go to the affiliate season and, we'll play 150 games of baseball and we'll get to travel, and it's going to be a lot. Obviously, I'm still working in baseball with the Cubs, but this role is going to look a lot different from the past couple of years, just because it's more games. We're traveling. We might be on the road for 1 to 2 weeks at a time. You're dealing with a different type of player. I might be dealing with guys that are 30 years old, 32 years old. I might deal with guys that are 22 years old. I might deal with people who have been in the major leagues with 2 or 3 other teams and we traded for him, or I might deal with someone that I know that has been with the Cubs the whole time. So I'm looking forward to that challenge. I think it's going to look a little bit different just with like the coach player dynamic, but I think that's something it's going to force me to become a better communicator. I think that's kind of the theme of people I've talked to who have worked at that level. They say, yeah, that's the name of the game, is being able to, still get buy-in from those guys, especially when they've either had success and now they're back down in AAA, or, you may have a guy who's, hot prospect coming up and you need to keep him level-headed. So
yeah, bunch of hungry people.
Yep. So
that's awesome. Cool. So ideally, what's the end goal here? I know you kind of touched on that a little bit, but like ideally, do you want to like be able to grow this and then end up in Chicago in the major leagues?
I mean, that's like, I've had a lot of people ask me that. Obviously, that's like I think that's a lot of people's goals, especially early on. I don't really know yet, because I don't want to, like, obviously I could say that and be like, yeah, it's obviously my goal, and people are gonna probably like support that. But I think the biggest thing for me is like, I'm enjoying it now. I don't want to like make that my goal if it's not truly what I want. So like, obviously there's something to say about like, okay, like I have a goal, I'm gonna see it all the way through, but what's the balance of seeing it through? But if at some point it just isn't exciting to you and you hate it, like, do you still keep pursuing it? I don't know. I want to make sure the main things for me is like, am I working with good people? Am I working with like people that I can learn from? And am I in an environment where I can learn? Obviously, like, other parts of my life have to not suffer to too much of an extent. Like there's going to be sacrifices that have to be made, but like I said, like I have a girlfriend, like that's a very important part of my life too, and like she's been like very supportive of me. But if that's something I have to take into account too. So those are kind of the main things. Like, do I have do I have enough balance? Obviously, like, I don't know if you're never going to have like complete balance. And I think that's kind of like a myth, but like, is it a place where like you can accept it? You know, I think it's that.
Is there a trade-off?
Yeah. Like, are you willing to make that trade-off?
Yeah.
If it gets to the point where I'm not, then it's like, okay, you have to make a decision. I think it's that, working with good people in an environment where you're able to continue to learn and develop. Obviously you have to figure pay into the equation, but I think like if you continue to develop and, you know, do everything you can to do your best, like that'll for the most part take care of itself. I'm not saying that's like the only thing you have to worry about, but so I think, like I said, this year will be kind of a good telltale. Will be my first year in affiliate where you're traveling, you know, you're on the road a lot, and that's going to be a little bit more similar to, you know, what you'd see at the major league level, albeit like obviously if you're at the major league level, you're probably traveling in a little bit more style, you know, getting pampered a little bit more. So, but I think it's just more of like, is it something that's still exciting to me? Is it something that I want to continue to do and like actually make sure it's what I want to do, not just like, oh, I feel like the expectation is, you know, you climb the ladder. Cause I mean, it's not really all that different from like what you would consider like a corporate job. You know, people get in strength and conditioning and they want to, you know, climb the ladder because, you know, people don't make a lot of money early on, and, you know, there's certain positions that make more money, and that's kind of what everyone wants to get to, you know, whether there's enough spots for all those people or not. But I don't want to be at the top and then just be like miserable, you know.
There's a lot of people that end up doing that.
Yeah, so I think that's something that I try to keep in mind. I can see where it would probably get tough to, you know, especially, you know, if you're making money and you're like, obviously working in the major leagues is like probably seen as a prestigious job. Like could be tough to admit to yourself, like, damn, I actually don't like this anymore. I want to do this thing. But at the end of the day, I feel like that's, you know, what you feel about yourself, you know, when no one else is around is probably more important, you know. But I don't know. I'm also 26 and don't know shit.
I don't know, man. I think you've lived a life that a lot of other people, you know, at your age haven't.
Yeah,
you've been
in ways.
You've been able to travel. You've lived internationally, you know. So
yeah. So I mean, for now, I love what we have going on with the Cubs, and I'm really thankful to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward to continuing to grow there. And, you know, however far that takes me is kind of a mystery at this point. But I mean, I know me and you have talked before. Eventually, like, I'd like to open up my own facility, ideally training athletes, but like, I know that's a ways away from now. But I think once I figure out where I want it, how I want it to look like, I think that's kind of always been the ultimate goal in the back of my mind. Like, I think it's great, like, being able to get this experience, like, working with high level athletes. But at the end of the day, like, I just feel like taking something and building it from the ground up is like, one, you can work on it forever, and it can like never be finished, which is like, that's a pro and a con.
I feel that.
Yeah, that's a pro and a con, but I also feel like I would think like the sense of pride that you can get from that, like building something from the ground up and like taking something and like continually making it better and better and better and better and like evolving that over time, is something that you just can't get when you're an employee versus a business owner. I mean, you could probably speak more to that, but that's something that's always kind of been in the back of my mind since I was like, you know, a teenager. Like in middle school, high school, was like, damn, I want to have my own gym. Like, obviously at that time I was like, damn, I think it'd be cool to have my own gym so I could just work out all alone. But now it's like, you know, what type of people do I want to serve? What do I want it to look like? You know, what do I want, you know, the culture to be like? What type of equipment do I want? Like, what's the ideal scenario? And then how the hell do I actually do that? It's probably the biggest question. But
yeah.
I
had no idea what I was doing there. I mean, I still feel like there's days I don't know what I'm doing. But.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's part of the allure to it, though, too, is like, at the time, and maybe still sometimes now, you're probably like scared a little shitless about like, fuck, like how you
every day.
Yeah, but like you always figure it out, so
things fall into place and things happen for a reason, and and it's just, you just got to stay true to who you are, and like you said, the people you want to serve, and realize you're doing it for a bigger picture, not just for yourself. You're doing it for others,
right?
And every decision you make has to be a conscious decision on how is this going to directly impact, not just myself or not just my family, but 250, 60 people that walk through the door, or however many people want to serve. No, that's awesome. I think that leads us to a really good segue too of some hot takes. I know, I don't remember how long Riverside lets you record for, but I think we've been on for almost an hour already.
Oh yeah.
So I think Riverside's like an hour and a half.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I don't want to go too long and have this cut off like some of my other interviews have in the past. So hot takes. So I'm thinking like anything that might be against the grain, controversial, but one thing that kind of popped up in my head was your training style. When you're like, let's say in season or like in the DR or something, is like, very athletic and performance based from what I've seen. But then every time you come back here, it almost switches gears. Like I see you using a lot of machines instead of free weights and whatnot. And like I've seen you, I love following your content and stuff. I haven't really seen much from you lately.
Yeah, I know, I've been slacking.
I've seen you talk about in the past, machines have a time and place, and how much you actually love using machines versus free weights and everything like that. So I don't know if you want to kind of talk about that just a little bit for just a couple minutes or something.
Yeah, and part of it's
even though you don't specifically train like a bodybuilder, but you still look like a damn bodybuilder.
Yeah, and I think appreciate the compliment.
Massive legs, like vascular, shredded,
and part of it's like obviously anecdotal evidence, like for myself, which you could go on a whole other tangent about, like how every it's obviously never a one size fits all.
Yep.
But I think even for athletes, like those machines have a time and place, and I think a lot of times things like bodybuilding or powerlifting type training will get kind of shit on in the S&C community, like, oh, like we're not training bodybuilders, or oh, we're not training powerlifters. It's like true, but like you got to think like the field of strength and conditioning is very young. Like I think the first strength and conditioning coach, I think it was University of Nebraska, was the first one to like have a strength and conditioning coach, and that was back in like the 60s. That's like super super recent compared to bodybuilding has been around way longer. Powerlifting and strongman has been around way longer. So like if you're not taking bits and pieces from all those other, adjacent areas, I think you're missing out. Because most people would agree that making people bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic is probably a good thing for most, if not all athletes. Okay, well, if I want to get someone bigger, obviously there's a nutrition component, but using bodybuilding techniques is probably a little bit more like, that's probably like a pretty good way to look to. Obviously you don't need to make that all of your training, but like some of those methods, at the right time of year, maybe in the early off season when you're furthest away from, competition, and that's kind of the goal. Like, why wouldn't you use stuff like that? So I think that's one place where machines can come in handy, is you can accumulate a lot of volume. You can accumulate a lot of volume like safely. You can probably push a little bit closer to failure versus free weights, because you're not having to, stabilize, an external implement. Novelty is also another thing. Like if you only train, it's easy for us to say because like we love to train. Like I love to train. Like I could only train with barbells and dumbbells if I really wanted to, and still do it because I love training. But even I would get bored of that. Yeah. So think about an athlete. Like they love playing their sport. Yeah, some of them like to work out, but a lot of them, like, they just do it because that's part of their job. Part of it is novelty, like giving them something a little bit different, something a little bit more enjoyable. Like, who doesn't like to just get a gnarly pump?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little bit easier to do that with machines. And then I also think, as someone, your training, I know you had mentioned this too, like your training does your training style does change as you get older. Like someone who, the guys that I trained in the DR who are 16, 17, 18 years old, those guys are a lot more adaptable, and I can throw a lot more at them and they can handle a lot more stuff versus some guy who is 32 and has played, 8 or 10 years of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And maybe had, 2 knee surgeries and, an elbow surgery. Yeah, like those. I don't think you can expect those two people to train the same way, and they shouldn't train the same way. And I think if you're open-minded enough, because at the end of the day, like as a strength coach, like I can have guys, all right, you bench 315. What does that matter when you're on the field?
Yeah.
Right, like you being stronger, and say if benching 315 is making like you're stronger than you were before. Okay, yeah, being stronger probably contributes positively to performance. But at the end of the day, like the numbers on the field are always going to trump the numbers in the weight room. So if I can get a better output out of a guy through a machine versus a free weight, or that feels better on his body, like just orthopedically, why wouldn't you use that to your advantage?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. Do you need water or anything?
Yeah, I'm like choking a little bit. No homo.
It's dry in there.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm talking too much.
So and I don't know if I've brought this up on any of my other interviews or on the podcast, but I've had this in conversation with people just passing by. One thing I really like seeing with some of our powerlifters that come in here, some of them have coaches that actually specifically will put them into a hypertrophy phase.
Okay.
After, let's say, like a competition, like either after a competition or after like, a mock competition, like block or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they'll do like a hypertrophy phase for maybe 10 weeks, 12 weeks, maybe not quite as long, 8 weeks or something like that. And I think that's awesome because a powerlifter is going to definitely, in a sense, benefit, unless you want to stay in the same weight class forever. I think a powerlifter could definitely benefit from getting, just growing more muscle or building more muscle. But in the same context, like, or switching roles, I think a bodybuilder could benefit from being stronger.
Yeah.
Because, I
agree.
In theory, like, the stronger you are, the more muscle you're going to have.
Or and vice versa.
They
feed into each other.
Yeah. Or a bodybuilder could do strongman. Now, with bodybuilding, it's a little bit different because you do have to be kind of conscious of like your symmetry and proportions and things like that. And it sounds weird, but like if you build up almost too much core strength, or if you build up your core too much,
you'll get more of that blocky.
Yeah,
you'll lose that V taper.
Yeah, which if you're going to be an open bodybuilder, it's not that big of a deal because you don't have to be. It's okay if your midsection is a little bit blockier as long as your lats, delts, and your legs can like kind of offset it and still give you that X-frame look. But if you're doing other classes like physique or classic, then you have to be a lot more conscious of having that smaller waist.
Yeah,
that's cool.
No, yeah, I think, and I mean, another thing too is like if you do the same, you can do the same type of training like year round, but like it's just obviously giving your body a novel stimulus, giving your like if you're a strongman or a powerlifter, giving your joints a little bit of a break from the heavy stuff and going building a little more hypertrophy versus, and then like a bodybuilder, like you may be if you train in like the 8 to 12 rep range, that might be getting a little bit stale, and you might be able to see a little bit more benefits from 4 to 6 or 6 to 8, something like that.
Yeah, and I like to do heavier compounds, let's say like dumbbell bench, deadlifts, things like that, where I'll do more like the 6 to 10 rep range. And like if I miss it, if I'm a little short, if I'm like 5 reps or something, that's fine. Like it's not very conducive to, but it's conducive to strength. And I know I'm going to do other hypertrophy movements that same day that I'm going to be in a higher rep range anyway. So I'm still going to get that kind of like stimulus. So
and then another reason for me is like I just know like I'm not going to have a gym like yours when I go back to Arizona or Iowa. So like I just want to like take advantage of the fun toys too.
I just wish you were here long enough for when our new equipment comes in. I got a couple new pieces, but that just means you have to come back.
Every time I come back, there's something new, or there's about to be something new.
Yeah. That's the thing I always tell people. In 6 months, there's gonna be something different, but try to anyways. So, what are some other hot takes? I'm gonna kind of give you a little bit of the floor. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but like, are there any other hot takes of anything that you would want to touch base on that you're like, oh man, if I don't say this, I'm doing everyone a disservice?
Something that I hear, something that I heard a lot, like coming up. I mean, I'm still coming up, but like early when I was getting into S&C was, if you like are just getting into this because you like to work out, you're in it for the wrong reasons. And I kind of disagree with that, because I feel like the reason I got into anything fitness was because I just love to train. And I can see where it can be taken too far, where it's like, okay, if all you care about is your own training and you forget about your clients or your athletes, then obviously, like, anyone can tell you that that's not a good thing. But I think it can also go too far the other way. Like, I don't want to have like a strength coach or a personal trainer that doesn't train themselves hard, at least decently. Or like, it doesn't even have to be like train, like do some form of physical exercise activity that like you take, decently seriously. Like, you have a goal and you are like going towards something, whether that's like, you want to run a marathon, or like you're trying to, I don't want to have someone that's telling me what to do, or they don't have skin in the game like that. So like, I think that's underrated, like training yourself. And like, that's not the only reason that I like this field, is because I like to train myself. Like, I love to learn, and there's always like more to learn in this field. But I think if you don't like to train yourself, I think that's almost as big of a red flag to me.
Well, and not to be too blunt, but like, actually look like you work out.
That's another thing
all
too.
Seen that personal trainer or that coach or that trainer that like you look at them and you're like, when's the last time you worked out?
Yeah.
Do you actually work out? Like, it's hard to take advice, and like, this sounds so bad, but it's true. It's hard to take advice from someone that you're like, I'm stronger than you, I'm faster than you,
right.
I look better than you, or whatever the case is. Like, all right, like I have goals, but like, let's say if I were to hire a trainer or something, it's like I have goals, but like my goals don't correlate with the way that this person's living their lifestyle or the way that they look.
Yeah, you gotta walk the walk. Yeah, and I think that's why I say, like, here's another thing too, is like, do you have to look the part? I think to a certain extent, yes. Like, obviously not everyone is gonna, like, people will say like, oh, genetics, which like obviously genetics play a role, but like, control what you can control. The optics, whether you want to accept it or not, are clearly something that people take into account. When they walk into a gym and they see you as the owner, like, they can tell you work out. It would be a lot different if, you were super overweight and looked like you'd never trained, or super skinny and looked like you'd never trained. Like, whether you want to accept it. That was
me when I first started the gym.
Yeah. And then
I've had people come in, they've seen like our old YouTube channels, and they're like, this dude owned a gym.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Like, I like to work out and open a gym.
Yeah. So like, I do, like, the optics matter. And I think like, that's why I said, like, unless you have like, a head of gray hair, and it's like, you can tell like they're, a little bit older, but like, you got to at least be able to tell that they used to get after it or still get after it. I mean, you have people in here that are, 70 years old that are getting after it more than some young guys. Like, there's no like excuse for that. And that's why I say, like, different athletes are going to look a little different. Like, even if, some of the toughest motherfuckers I've ever been around, or like some of my teammates on the track team at Simpson, they might look skinny as a rail, but like, they can go out and hammer, 15 miles, no problem. So like, there's still, obviously it's going to look different. Maybe if you're doing that, you're probably helping more like endurance type athletes, but you got to train. I think if you're like an S&C coach, you got to at least try to like look the part, or like be, athletically, capable. No, obviously a lot of S&C coaches were former athletes. Some were at higher levels than others, but like, practice what you preach to a certain extent. You don't have to do everything that, you have your athletes doing. You might have your own goals, but like, when, your, athletes or clients see that you're also like putting in work to, to achieve your goals when it comes to training, like, they're going to have like that much more respect for you, and they'll be like, okay, like, I can listen to this guy, whether they're training for, bodybuilding, strongman, triathlon, CrossFit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
we're not saying you have to be like a 280-pound mass monster,
no,
super lean, super shredded. Like obviously, like, and another thing too, and like this is a whole another rabbit hole we get down another day, is like athletes, a lot of athletes aren't super ripped or shredded. Like you're training based off of your, like, what your goals are for performance. So like, if you're a lineman, like you're gonna need to have mass, like,
right?
So you don't have to be shredded.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be carrying some body fat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, obviously we're not saying like you have to be super lean or this or that. It's just like, just look like you work out.
Yeah.
So,
or like people see you, like
I feel like this could get skewed in a weird way.
No, it's
like we're not trying to be assholes.
No.
Yeah. So, cool. So one thing I want to say, like, and plug you guys, is like, you've been doing the whole podcasting world for a long time, and I do want to give this guy credit, because he's the one that hooked us up with this podcasting platform. I bounced a lot of ideas off of French in regards to our own podcast and stuff. And so I want to thank you for that. But he has his own, like I said, like you started out doing Fit for Thought with Nolan.
Fitness for Thought with Nolan.
Yep. And so like I was able to make an appearance or two on that back in the day. And then you have your Bev Boys podcast, which was really cool. I was on that earlier this summer.
Yeah.
With you guys. That was really fun time to be on there. So so if you guys want more of French, check out the Bev Boys podcast. I'll try to link in the comments below here on YouTube and tag you or whatever, and some shorts and obviously and stuff like that. So any other key takeaways? Any other last thoughts? Anything else I'm missing?
No, I mean, like,
anything you want to plug? You do some coaching.
Yeah, I mean, obviously check out Bev Boys podcast with me and my boy Brian. It's not your typical sport performance podcast. We're ripping energy drinks, reviewing them, and then we might talk about. We usually try to talk about something somewhat intelligent training wise, but we don't have a script. We kind of just let it flow. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Do a little bit of coaching online on the side. So if you're interested in that, you can just shoot me a DM. I'd probably be accepting a few more clients if anyone has any interest in that for more details. And then just anyone, if you're trying to, you think you want to get into strength and conditioning, or you're trying to break into the field, I'm not an expert by any means, but like I can tell you what I did and what worked for me and what I think you should do if you're trying to get a foot in the door. I think there's a fairly tried and true formula for a lot of people. I mean, like I said, like if it's a tough field to get into, but if you're willing to grind and put in the work, it'll reward you. And I think it's a really cool job. If anyone has any questions about that, I'd be more than happy to try to help out or give advice. Yeah, really appreciate you having me on. I think more people need to. Obviously, we're in the day of we're in the day and age of everyone's a content creator, influencer, and I think it can be people kind of shit on it a little bit too much, probably because some people. You could argue whether people are being genuine or not, but I think more people, because there's so many people who maybe aren't doing it for the best of reasons, or there needs to be more like people, like just normal Joes who are willing to just kind of, share their story, document whatever, their fitness journey, or if you want to start a podcast or whatever you're interested in, I would say just like go for it. If you're afraid of people are going to like think bad about it, don't worry about that, because people probably won't pay attention to it at the beginning anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. That's kind of like I'm not saying that to discourage people, but the pressure should be off from that. And then if you stick with it for long enough, and I think are genuine to yourself, maybe you'll catch traction. But I also think that that's not the reason that like I like to, like, obviously it's cool if you get some notoriety or like are able to monetize off that. But at the end of the day, like I think more people just need to create for creation's sake, like just kind of work that creative muscle, and be able to. It's cool if you're documenting your journey to kind of like look back at some of like the old stuff you've made and be like, oh damn, like I remember when I did that, or like damn, I can't believe I used to look like that, or think that. It's almost like it's like the modern day journal almost. Like you can use your Instagram or your social media or your YouTube or podcast as like a living, documentary of your life almost. I think that's cool to do that for like your own personal sake. You don't have to like put a bunch of pressure on yourself to, be a famous influencer. You can, and then if it turns into that, great. You're probably going to have more luck being consistent with it if you do it for yourself. Anyway, so
Oof, I felt that.
Yeah.
One thing I like to say is looking back 2 to 5 years, even 1 to 5 years, or even further, you should be very proud, but also there should be maybe like a little bit of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like
damn, I can't believe I was that dumb.
What was I doing? Like I did that? I put that on camera? Or like, man, like, I used to look like that? Or whatever it is, it's but also being humble with it and like, having a sense of pride of like, yeah, like humble beginnings. I started out like this, and then, look at how I've grown, and like even taking the time to like sit back and like reflect on the growth that you've been able to accomplish and whatnot. And that's one thing I personally struggle with, and whatnot. Yeah.
So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that wasn't just a bunch of rambling.
No, I love that you couldn't have ended the podcast on a better note there. So.
But yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. I know we've been looking forward to this one for a
Sir.
while.
Yeah, I know.
Now that I've been home for more than 2 days at a time. So
I've been trying to get you on for a while. So, well, thank you so much. I appreciate everything. So safe travels. I'm super excited that you're going to be a little bit closer and hopefully see you a little bit more.
Yeah, so, same here, man. Appreciate you.
But I'm sure this won't be the last time you guys see him. So thank you, French.
Oh, yeah, thank you.